Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today, we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Our first story today comes to us from RiderZA. Don't hotfix my code. A company loses commission on thousands of sales. Let's jump right in. Preamble. So this is a story shared to me with permission to share by a work colleague that I have recently reacquainted with. I will be writing this as if it was me in this situation, as that's how he told it. And I think it will read better too. Background. I worked as a developer for a company that built and managed the software behind a rapidly growing online e-commerce store that sells tech gadgets and accessories, which I will refer to as Megastore for this story, in a Central African country. The Megastore started off small and my boss built the original website on risk for a cut of the commission that Megastore earned. Side note, as it is important later, the commission that Megastore gained from the sale of an item on the site would be split on purchase. The majority of the commission would be paid directly into Megastore's bank account, and a smaller portion would be paid into my boss's bank account. As the popularity of Megastore grew, so did the demands on my boss, and he was able to build a company around servicing Megastore. While he did try to grow his client base, none were the same size or scope as Megastore, and thus were not able to carry the company. Megastore was approached for a buyout by a company, we can call them Bad Company Inc., with their own internal development team. Part of the buyout deal included ending the revenue sharing agreement with my boss, an external development company. At the beginning of the process, everything was very positive, as my boss arranged a big payday and the deal was signed. He had managed to get this great deal because he had positioned that this buyout would kill his company, and thus he and all his staff needed to be compensated. The buyout took several months, and by the end, the relationship between Bad Company Inc. and my boss had completely broken down. My boss had managed to secure another large client and thus didn't need to close his company. Because of this, Bad Company Inc. said that they didn't need to pay my boss a payout. A lot of these meetings were above my pay grade. The setup. So we are in the final days of handing over the entire site to Bad Company Inc. and their internal CTO, DickDev, who has complete hatred for the code that ran Megastore, as it was a bastardized version of an open source platform. He considered himself a purist, and if the code wasn't custom built for the purpose, it wasn't worth anything. So back to my boss, he had managed to keep some version of the original deal in place, but in the preceding weeks, he had made a big threat to Bad Company Inc. that he would do something funny with the code that handled the commission split. It was very much a threat and blowing off steam, as he couldn't legally do it, nor was it actually in his nature to do it. All talk, no bite. However, this outburst did create a situation where DickDev did not trust us to remove our code that handled the commission in our favor. So on the final build that we are required to hand over, we were meant to remove all code that handled the commission, and DickDev would implement new code to handle the commission and then deploy it to the live website instead of us. The official documentation was reworded from the supply and deploy handover version to just the supply handover version. Great, less work for us. D-Day. So D-Day arrived. We had actually completed the build a few days earlier, with commission sharing code completely removed, and we're just sitting on this version so we could hand it over on the day as contractually required to do so. So we handed it over in the morning, and we're all planning to head out for a long lunch. Just before we left, we checked Megastore for the last time and noticed that DickDev had already deployed the handed over version. Puzzled, as we assumed that any development on the commission code would require extensive testing, we logged into the site and saw that no code for handling the commission in any fashion was there. Nowhere. There was nothing. We logged into the payment gateway and there were no logs there either. This meant no commission was being deducted at all, so Megastore was losing 100% of their revenue. We immediately reached out to DickDev via multiple calls, which he rejected until he eventually answered and yelled that he was busy and that we should stop calling him, followed by him hanging up the phone. So my boss, concerned that this somehow would be thrown back into his face as the funny thing he threatened to do, instructed us to do a hotfix and deploy it to the server without DickDev's approval. Which we did. It was a messy fix using the old code. We put all the money into the Megastore account and only 1 cent into my boss's account, as something had to be deducted for the code to work. 10 minutes after deploying the hotfix, DickDev called accusing my boss of stealing. Many heated words were shared, followed by my boss putting DickDev on speaker and instructing all of us to quickly record the conversation on our phones. DickDev informed us that he had already implemented the code as he had noticed the complete build 2 days earlier. We tried to tell him that something was wrong, and he just replied that we were too simple-minded to understand custom code, as we were just simple web admins, nothing more, and that we had 30 minutes to remove the hotfix code. My boss got him to repeat the instructions one more time and state that we had supplied a build that satisfied the conditions of the agreement, and then hung up on him as soon as he had uttered those words. It took 5 minutes to revert the code. We then were instructed to all go to the lunch venue and leave our phones in our cars. Aftermath. Because D-Day was an end-of-the-month kind of deal, it happened to land on a Friday, so the loss of income was only reflected in the bank on the Monday or Tuesday of the following week. This meant the problem was only picked up after running commission-free for 3 to 4 days. My boss is aware of the amount of money lost, but we are not. However, we assumed it to cost the company the commission on between 1,000 to 4,000 individual sales. The CTO did supposedly try to spin a story that our boss had tried to do something funny, and all my boss did was provide the recordings of their conversation, which shut that crap down. My boss got his payout, all the staff got a great bonus, and we noticed that DickDev's LinkedIn status changed a few weeks later to seeking broader challenges. So the boss over there heard you tell your employees that you wanted them to record the phone call and then was more than happy to repeat their instructions twice. That boss is a dumbass. This goes back to the comments that I've made on previous videos where if somebody says to you, "Can I have that in writing?" which is pretty much what's happening in this situation, you should really look at what you're asking this person to do because you just might be screwing yourself. Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our next story today comes to us from Revolution Friendly 56. Help the boss hide evidence of his affair? Sure, let's jump right in. Years ago, I lived in a small town with less than 10,000 people. Everyone knows everyone, and since they all went to the same kindergarten, elementary school, and high school, most of them end up marrying each other too. Yep, it's that small. I moved there for the adventure, something about the wilderness I supposed. I was a single guy and I also didn't know any better. It would be fun, right? Little does one know, a small town with only one industry that attracts mostly transient population of men working 10 on, 4 off, and living in camp must be the definition of fun. I still don't know why I did it, or why I stayed for so long. Small towns are like black holes. Once you are sucked in, it's hard to leave. There is a story I heard about this town. There are 3 women for every man in this town, so you're a lucky son of a bee. If you spend every Friday night at the only pub, you will eventually realize it's the same 3 women for every man. Like I said, because everyone knows everyone, it's inevitable some of them are effing each other regardless of their marital statuses. My boss owns a business and he flies out of the town often to the next biggest city because that's where his family lives and where the children go to school. There is no way in hell his kids would grow up with these bumpkins, he says. The wife can't stand the town, but would come and stay the week or even weekends every now and then. On some weekends though, she would be in town, but he would have to go away on business. One weekend on my days off, I got an urgent call from the boss who says he was out of town, but he needed me to quickly go into his home to help him retrieve something. He says, "Go through the basement door, it should be unlocked, grab my laptop and all the receipts on the desk. If anyone approaches you, just be cool and pretend you belong there. Be quick and quiet. Want me to break into your house and grab properties that don't belong to me? Anything for you, boss." As you can see, I really needed the job. I pulled up near the house but parked further away. I surveyed the surroundings, took a deep breath, and walked quickly to the side of the house where the basement door is. Lo and behold, the basement door is unlocked. The muscle dog is in the backyard and could see me but didn't bark. How useful to have a guard dog that doesn't bark. I entered the basement and sure enough, there was a laptop that was plugged in and unlocked, and a Ziploc bag with receipts. At this point, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but they are fancy restaurant receipts, concert receipts, and receipts for hotel stays. Before I closed the laptop lid, I saw the thumbnails of the picture folder. Everything now makes sense. Then, I heard a female voice from upstairs, so I shoved everything on the desk into a bag and booked it. Now, I was trying to be a ninja sneakily on my exit, but the dang dog barked. I must have looked extra flustered when I looked back at the house and saw my boss's wife staring at me from behind the window. Crap. I drove straight home and took a long shower. My heart was pounding so fast, I probably forgot I couldn't remove fingerprints from my boss's home this way. Hopefully she didn't recognize me. My phone must have been going off the whole time because it was ringing when I got out of the shower. My boss asked, "Did you get it?" I did, but your wife saw me. Did she say anything? She only saw me as I was leaving from a distance. Okay, this is what I want you to do. Drop this off at my office, put it into the drawer. I will deal with this next Monday. Sir, I think I know what this is about and I won't say anything, but are you sure this is a good idea? Just do as I say. Okay. At this point, I think it's been at least half an hour since I was at the basement. I drove to the office and there were cars parked outside. It's a 24/7 operation after all. As I entered the office, I saw one of the operations supervisors who asked if I was working weekends again, and I said yes. I moved quickly down the hallway and made a turn into my boss's office. The boss's wife was there in his office, in his chair, arms crossed and looking pissed. She said that she could call the police, or I could tell her what I was doing at her house. In the end, she will get the answer. She saw the grocery store bag I was holding on to and asked me what it was. At this point, I told her that I was told to bring this here and I need to put this into the drawer next to where she's sitting. I placed the package and left, then texted my boss that the deed is done. Great job! Next Monday, the crap hit the fan. I guess the boss's wife must have guessed the password to the laptop. I never got fired for what I did. After all, I did everything to a T. It was a tough next few months though, as the boss and his wife worked through their divorce. The company ended up going into receivership and everyone got laid off, including me. After years at this small town, I finally found a way and motivation to finally leave. So this woman's reaction to someone breaking into her home and grabbing her husband's laptop was to go to his office and wait. Yet she already knew that something was up. I honestly hope she made out like a bandit in that divorce settlement. Our last story today comes to us from Fed Up Cat. Don't interrupt for any reason? Okay, let's jump right in. I just read a malicious compliance story that reminded me of this. I hadn't thought about this in years. Back in the early to mid 1980s, I worked as a PBX operator. If you are unfamiliar, a PBX operator is responsible for switching calls on local lines within the internal telephone system of a large company or corporation. PBX stands for Private Branch Exchange and is a system that enables users to have external telephone lines without having to maintain a separate line for each user. The system that we used was an older one that had a switchboard where you had to pull up a line and plug it into a ringing phone line, flip a switch to answer the call, another to put them on hold, take messages, deliver messages, transferring calls, etc., while at the same time doing the exact same thing with as many as 20 to 30 other calls coming in at the same time on other switchboard lines. Our switchboards held up to around 100 phone lines. Picture the old, and yes, I'm that old, skits with Ernestine the operator played by Lily Tomlin, and you get the idea. It's fast-paced, stressful, and not for the faint of heart. I worked side by side with Mary and Jake. We had relief operators that would take over so that we could go have a break or eat lunch and dinner. During our 30-minute lunch break, weather permitting, we would go outside where there were picnic tables that we could sit at to eat, sleep, or just decompress. Mary liked to sit out at a picnic table alone and read a book during break and didn't want to be interrupted while she was reading for any reason, and would scream, kick at, push, and curse whomever had the nerve to do it. One day, Jake and I walked outside, saw her reading, and decided to just grab another table. That's when we saw it. A snake! It was under Mary's table and slithering toward her feet. Jake knew immediately that it was a harmless black king snake. I didn't, but all snakes terrify me, so I tried to get Mary's attention. She gave me the finger and grumbled, "F off, B." Jake told me to let her find out on her own. Cue malicious compliance in 3, 2, 1. The snake slithered over Mary's sandaled feet. At first, she just moved her feet and kept on reading, but the snake had other plans. It came back again to her feet. Again, Mary moved her feet, but the snake held on. so she looked beneath the table to see what the problem was. She screamed and jumped off the bench so fast that she scraped both knees on the undersides of the table and the back of one ankle on the bench. When she was about 10 yards away from the picnic table, she started screaming at Jake and me. "Why the F didn't you tell me there was a snake under there, you morons?" I tried. You made it clear that you didn't want to be interrupted. You could have interrupted me to tell me that there was a snake. I tried. You told me to F off and called me a B, remember? Well, obviously I didn't mean it. How exactly were we supposed to know that? It's a snake. Jake went to Mary's table and retrieved the 3 to 4 foot long king snake and let it wrap around his hand and arm. This caused Mary to back up even further. "Kill it! Get rid of it!" "Nope, I'm gonna let this little guy live right here until you apologize to OP for telling her to F off and calling her a B." Mary doubled down and refused, saying that she had every right to protect her me time and wasn't about to apologize for it. Jake laughed and told her that in that case, he wouldn't interrupt her me time any longer and laid the snake on top of her book that was still on the table. The snake seemed to like the nice warm pages and curled up for a nap in the sun. Mary never did retrieve her book. It sat on the picnic table a little over a week before it disappeared. We figured it was maintenance that took it when they mowed the lawn. Mary also never apologized, but she never went outside for break again either, choosing instead to sit on the floor by the door to read. 1 ringy-dingy. 2 ringy-dingy. Have I reached the party to whom I am speaking? The fact that I knew who this was right off the bat just leads me to remember how old I am. Check out all 3 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.